Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, we've got a juicy topic, and it can be quite a heart-wrenching topic as well. It is about how trauma can show up in our relationships. And I know this is going to be relevant for quite a lot of our listeners listening in today. But we've got a fantastic guest who's an expert in this area. Her name is Brooke Kekos. She's a trauma healing coach and RTT therapist. So welcome, Brooke.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Excellent. So firstly, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into doing what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. So I have actually only been doing this for a little over 2 years now. I was not always in this field of work. I used to be in the beauty industry. And so I was making people feel really beautiful on the outside and look younger and more vibrant. And now I've kind of switched to making people feel really good on the inside. So really kind of getting their mental health in a space where they can actually feel really confident in themselves and embrace life more fully. It really went on this journey because I recognized I needed to heal more deeply because I suffered some pretty severe trauma in my life. And I know trauma is sometimes a really big, scary, ugly word that people don't want to talk about. But I think on some level, each and every one of us as human beings have some trauma. We have some trauma, and some people have more than others. And that was really my journey in getting into this space and recognizing when I started to heal, I wanted to show others how they could heal as well, and they did not have to suffer.
So for you, Brooke, would you be prepared to share what your personal trauma was, or is that something you'd rather not discuss?
No, I completely can share that. So, I share that in this space all the time because I think it's really important to help everybody know that they're not alone. Like there is other people that have, survived this stuff, come out of it, and instead of just kind of being stuck in survival mode, have actually been able to thrive. So my trauma really started as a child. There was sexual abuse that was involved. And I didn't realize that until honestly later on in my life. So my brain did a really great job of hiding that from me for a really long time. But what that did was like the original wound that started this imprint on me that made me stuck in survival responses. So I had, the severe complex PTSD that I did not get diagnosed with until about 2017. I was raised by a very abusive father, and I was also stuck in a very highly demanding, controlling cult, which used shun and punishment and fear to kind of control its members. So that's all I knew of that belief system. And I was really kind of stuck in that for most of my life until I was about 35 years old. And that led me also to get into an abusive relationship for 17 years. So kind of all those combinations of like this really big hurricane storm of a lifelong of abuse. 2017, I was started to become aware that something wasn't right. And I started to kind of be awakened to the fact, okay, I don't want to be stuck in this place anymore. I think I need to break free. And then I started to do my own research on the religion that I was in, and I started to find some lies, some fallacies in it. And so I started to say, okay, I need to search deeper here. I ended up leaving that cult and my marriage all in one fell swoop. And that was what really began my healing journey of recognizing that I was deeply traumatized, that I was living in this fear state. So I began that journey. And then in 2020, my ex-husband and my father of my children, he died suddenly. And that reignited another kind of process of deep, heavy grief and recognizing I needed to heal more deeply again. So, and kind of reconnect back to myself and reconnect back to, okay, what is my belief system? What is my higher power or God or universe or whatever that looks like, and kind of reach out and get the answers. And when I started asking, I started receiving the answers. And that's what really shifted me into this space of being in alignment with, I needed to become who I am today, to talk about my story, let others know about my trauma, so that they can see too, that they can kind of rise above it and really access this other sense of self, that they don't have to be stuck in these really deep, dark places.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Brooke, and deeply, deeply grateful to you for being vulnerable enough and courageous enough to, share all of that, because, it is deeply healing in itself to be able to share with others what's happened previously to ourselves. I mean, I think most of my audience, unless you're new to the podcast, know that I'm a rape survivor myself. So I understand completely what you're saying, and about living most of your adult life on high alert without actually sometimes even realizing that that's what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's funny. I actually got asked this question the other day, and it is so true. They're like, well, did you even know that you were traumatized? Well, no, you really don't. You have no idea, because that was my normal from a young age, right? So it was how I thought I was supposed to be living. It was how I thought that it was supposed to feel. And I realized I didn't even know what real love was like. I had not experienced what real love was like, because there had been so much abuse. And so I didn't find actually a man that kind of was able to help me understand what a healthy relationship looked like, or what love even was supposed to feel like, until I was almost 36 years old. So it's like recognizing that when we're stuck in those cycles of survival, and we're deeply traumatized, our body shuts down, and it just goes into this state of, okay, we got to protect ourselves, because the world is a really big, scary place, and this is all we know, and we don't know how to really get outside of that.
Yeah, and sadly for me, well, I met my ex-husband when I was 26, nearly 27, and I entered that relationship not realizing at the time, that he offered me love, protection, and safety. My ex-husband was a very good man. It wasn't an abusive relationship at all. He was very caring, loving, and was a very good husband and father. But within that relationship, I was shut down, and very much a cold, confused, sometimes frigid woman within that relationship. And obviously, I hadn't shared with him what had happened to me until I didn't do that until I was about 42, 43 years old. So,
Wow.
within that relationship, he didn't understand a lot of why I was the way I was until I found the courage to share what had happened to me with him. But even then, it was still confusing to me to understand how and where to start in relation to getting healed from it.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. For me, sexual abuse also made me have rigidity, right? Want to control my environment. But what it also did is it felt me, a lot of times people, when they've been sexually abused, and this is what happened for me, I put sex equals love. So I used my body in a way to receive love, right? And so it was like I just put that in the box. Okay, if this man's having sex with me, he must love me. And if he's not, he must not love me. So it was like I was perpetually chasing that high of using that sex in that way to kind of get that acceptance and that love. And it made me kind of come across of like where it was like I needed to have all this attention, and it was like this insatiable void if I didn't have it, because I just seeked it outside of myself. And it also made me have like deep shame and not love my body, right? It's like I just
Yes.
I didn't even respect it, because I hadn't been taught to do that, right? It was violated. So it was just this feeling of unsafeness
Yeah,
within me. I'm sure you can understand.
totally understand. And I was the same. I had total lack of boundaries, didn't have any self-worth. Even though I was a confident person externally, people would think, I'm a confident woman, but underneath all that, there was this, like you said, this shame, this humiliation, this lack of self-worth, this lack of value in myself. And because prior to meeting my husband, I had the opposite, because my trauma happened in my teens, and it happened to me twice with two different men at two different times in my teens, and I did go through a phase of being very promiscuous because of that as well. So I went the other way prior to meeting my husband, and then upon meeting him, flipped again.
Yeah, I completely understand. It's like, it is, you notice how these type of imprints really show up in our lives, because if we are chasing, that love, or we're chasing that acceptance because we really weren't taught what it was supposed to feel like, right? What boundaries were supposed to be like, and how we could create the safeness within ourselves. We're always allowing other people to cross those boundaries because we don't know the difference.
Absolutely. And for me, it took me a long time, to establish firm boundaries and feel like, sex didn't equal love. And
yes, exactly.
And I think a lot of women listening to this will resonate, because we do tend to have that mindset, don't we, where we think sex does equal love. And I see so many young girls, who are offering themselves sexually to men far too early in any sort of relationship, and it saddens me, because I know that deep down they're not valuing themselves, and they're giving themselves away because of that lack of self-worth and those lack of boundaries, aren't they?
Yeah, completely. I look back on my life, and I always say you can't have any regrets, right? I think we learn our lesson, and we understand ourselves more deeply when we go through these type of things. It was that lack of self-worth ultimately, right? That lack of confidence in myself to allow other people to take advantage of me, allowing the abuse to happen. But at the same time, when that abuse happened when I was younger, I didn't have any way out, right? There was no way out. It just was. And so it was like, there's just this knowing now, you look back and you're like, well, I didn't know any different. Like when I was in the relationships that were abusive, right? Because people always say, well, why did you stay? Well, because ultimately people that are in abusive relationships don't know the difference, right? If we were taught the difference of what a healthy relationship was supposed to look like, then we would know. We would never get into a relationship like that. We would never put up with anything like that. And so I think it's just recognizing that, we did the best that we could then, and now we know better, right? And now it's about that healing space where we can say, okay, now I can take this and I can learn from this experience, and I don't have to allow this to happen in my next relationship. I know exactly what I want to heal and have in my next relationship. And I think that's the biggest piece, because for myself, coming from abusive relationships and then getting into a healthy relationship, I saw how I was still kind of addicted to the chaos, right? I was so used to like the up and down in the chaotic relationship. I was like, okay, well, wait a second. I have a stable partner that is showing up, is making me feel safe, and I'm trying to seek the opposite. I'm like, well, where's the high? I need the the ups and downs and the drama.
Adrenaline rush. Yeah.
Yeah, the drama of the relationship. And so here I am trying to seek it and find it. So in the beginning, if that wasn't happening, I was actually the one that was creating the chaos. I was creating the drama, because my nervous system seeked that. My nervous system had been wired, and my belief system had been wired to continue that pattern, because it had been a pattern for so long.
And that's the thing. It's what we're familiar with, even if it's unhealthy, even if it's really toxic, even if we're instigating it, it's familiar. It's what's familiar to us, and that's what keeps us in those relationships, and that's what keeps us and drives our behaviors, be it good, bad, or indifferent.
You've got that spot on. It's the familiar, right? And I think it's funny, when I started dating again after my marriage, I was continuing to attract the same type of partner. And it was actually like I was grabbing more narcissistic psychopaths than I thought was even possible. And I was like, what, so I had to kind of fail a few times, right? I had to see and be like, oh my gosh, okay, this is another pattern, to finally recognize, okay, I need to go with something completely different. And when I met my current partner, he was so the opposite of what I normally would have been attracted to. But something inside of me was curious because I was like, he's so different than anything I've ever known. And something inside of me said, okay, well, maybe different is what I need, right? Because I'm continuing to grab the same type, because subconsciously we seek the same thing, the same pattern, the same, because that's what we know, right? We go and grab the same. And so if you're finding that you're attracting the same type of partners and you're like, why do I keep getting disappointed? You might want to say, I need to make the unfamiliar familiar to me, right?
Because we're the common denominator in all of this, aren't we? So we have to take responsibility for what we're attracting.
Yeah, because I used to be like, I used to be outside, I'm like, well, every man is crazy, you know, like every man is just, you know, they're all pigs, right? Like I had like this whole concept of like thinking it was outside of me, like it was their fault. Granted, yes, there is men out there, obviously, that are narcissistic and abusive, and but really the deep down, they're just traumatized. They're just wounded individuals that need to heal themselves, right? But at the same level, it's like you have to recognize, okay, well, if I'm continuing to attract these type of people, it's something within me, something I need to go within and understand myself more deeply. And that's, you know, what I did at that journey, right? Recognizing that, okay, I needed to do the therapy. I needed to do the work. I needed to understand why I was continuing these patterns, and help myself identify the why.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a shame that we aren't taught this as part of the school education curriculum, because quite often we don't have parents that are good role models a lot of the times if we've been through trauma, that can teach us what is a healthy relationship. So it's just sad to me, you know, that as part of the curriculum, we aren't taught life skills, you know, especially around how to have a healthy relationship.
I completely agree with you. You know, and for those that are listening, it's like if we're modeled a relationship as a child, right? We take in all of that. So we take in all of that and we recognize, and we look at that relationship and we say, oh, okay, this must work, right? This must be what a relationship is supposed to look like. So if it was abusive, which is what I encountered and saw, then it was like, oh, then these things are okay, because we saw our mothers be okay with it, right? Or our fathers. And so that meant ultimately that we took that on and saw that relationship to be what we seek, because that's all we know. And I think, you know, if I would have been able to identify what a healthy relationship was supposed to look like, right? If I was taught that, if I understood that, then of course, right, you're not going to seek anything but. You're going to know the difference of a man that comes in and is completely toxic, or a woman that's completely toxic, and you're just going to say, oh, yeah, this doesn't work for me. You're gonna be able to have really strong boundaries and healthy sense of self that you wouldn't allow it to happen.
So for you, Brooke, what was the actual turning point that made you realize that, you know, you were responsible for attracting the repeat patterns of what you'd been attracting previously?
So I think it was recognizing after I got out of my marriage that had been for so long, attracting the same type of partners and being disappointed over and over again, and feeling that same perpetual feeling of being less than, right? Of being kind of betrayed and feeling like, you know, why am I attracting these liars and these people that truly say something, but they actually do another, right? I was still seeking the person that was saying all the right things, but no actions. And so that was when I was like, okay, something's not adding up. And so I was able to finally deduct that, okay, I have to dig deeper. And that was when I, you know, started the therapy process. And that started to help me kind of unravel like the past and help me kind of understand and navigate what a healthy relationship even looked like.
Absolutely. And I think deep down we know, don't we? We tend to sort of, I suppose, ignore the red flags for a long time because we are in love or romanticize the potential of our partner, don't we?
Completely. I think that, you know, I always talk about how it's always like fantasy world. I know for myself, being, you know, from a young age, I learned how to dissociate, right? And that's caused from the trauma, right? So I learned how to kind of like live in my own like little fantasy world and my own like little bubble. And so I think a lot of times we put, you know, these partners or whatever on pedestals because we're like, oh, we just want the fantasy ending. We see it in the movies, we see it in Disney, right? We meet a boy, we fall in love, and it's just perfect. Everything is a fairy tale ending. And so we kind of just have like this different way of looking at relationships. And so we kind of just like fantasize it. And then we want to hold on to something so, so deeply because we have this feeling like if we don't, we're afraid to be alone, right? We're afraid to sit with ourselves.
Or afraid to admit, because we perceive it as being a failure and not a successful relationship, and don't want to, I suppose, be seen by our friends and family as not succeeding within that relationship.
Yeah, completely. And there is also like that shame factor, right? Like, oh man, I failed at this relationship and I need to stay in this relationship. And even if it's hurting us, even if it's hurt, and that's the way I felt about, my own relationship for 17 years. Having even left once and then came back. And that's what they say a lot about, domestic violence survivors. It's like they'll leave up to 7 times sometimes to be able to actually really leave the relationship because we want to go back to what's comfortable, what's safe, what we think is safe, right?
Yeah, and we confuse what is safe with what is familiar to us, even if it's not safe.
Exactly. Yep. That's because it's comfortable, right? We want to go back into that same pattern because at least we know we can at least know what to expect, right? We know what's going to happen next, right? We know the up and the down, and we know what to expect. If we go into the unknown, which was a lot of my fear when I did finally break the relationship, it was like, oh my gosh, well, I'm going to be alone and I don't know what's going to happen next. And, a lot of fear comes up when you leave that trauma bonded relationship. And especially, I mean, it's literally like coming off of a drug. We are chemically bonded to that cycle, if you will, if you're in that abuse cycle. So I really felt like this deep grief in my body and really had a struggle of processing and kind of getting out of that relationship. So it is all a process. And that's kind of why our body is like, oh, go back to the relationship, right? Because at least you don't have to feel this pain. At least you don't have to feel like you're coming off of a drug.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Human nature. I think anybody that's listening to this particular episode that is probably currently in a traumatic or toxic or unhealthy relationship that resonates with what we're saying, know that you're not alone. There is help out here, and it's not your fault. Don't think we're trying to say that it's your fault. We're just actually, I suppose, highlighting that we do have a responsibility to take care of ourselves, and we do have a part to play in that, don't we?
Yeah, completely. It's definitely not their fault, right? I think I took on a lot of that feeling. I'm glad that you pointed that out. I took a lot of that. It's like, it's my fault. Like, why didn't I know? Why didn't I leave sooner? Why wasn't I smart enough? Like going into all of this like self-blame and guilt. And really that is just toxic shame. Like there's nothing that I could have done. It wasn't my fault, right? I was just this traumatized individual that did not know better. And in each part of your journey, it's like, until you can't do better, right? And so it's like, it's just like experiencing the fact that, just being curious with what could be and being open to the process of recognizing that it's okay that, you've gotten trapped in this relationship, or it's toxic, or that you're suffering, or that it's unhealthy, or it's making you sad, right? Just recognizing that how it's hurting you and looking at your mental health in a different way. Like you deserve to be happy. You deserve to be fulfilled. You deserve to have a relationship that holds you in a container that makes you feel so safe that it's sacred.
Absolutely. And it's wonderful, once you have come out the other side and you do experience a relationship where you have got that healthy passion and intimacy and you're feeling cherished and treated like a queen, it's so I suppose enlightening and liberating in terms of when you think back to probably what you used to put up with and those conversations that you have with yourself where you felt like you deserve better, but you're not doing anything about it.
Completely. Yeah. I think, the part of this is too, to give you like give somebody that's like that when, oh, I'm not doing anything about it. I know I need to, recognizing that that's just like a trauma response, right? It's freeze. Like, what do? We shut down. We want to avoid situations that we know we need to take care of. Just recognize you're in this trauma response for a reason. And then being able to say, it's okay that I haven't done what I needed to do, but then helping yourself find baby steps that you can do to move forward so that you can find a way out or a way to recognize that you need to break free.
Thank you so much for those words of encouragement, Brooke. So for those people listening that would like to connect with you around this topic, of healing our trauma, what is your best contact information?
So I would just say go straight to my website. It's lifecoachinggoddess.com. You'll be able to connect with me anywhere there on social media and book an appointment, book a call, whatever you would like to do. I'd love to chat with anyone.
Excellent. So any final words around this topic about how trauma can show up in our relationships, and if anybody's listening that recognizes they are one of those people that are currently experiencing this, any final words of advice for those?
Yeah, I would say that, it's never too late to begin again. It's never too late to rewrite your story, and recognize that you have this beautiful life and this beautiful human body to experience, and why not make sure that you're living this life to the fullest and you're at your ultimate happiness. So I feel like it's just embrace that and recognize that it's never too late to begin.
Yeah, because we all deserve it, don't we? We all deserve to be treated because we are special, we are unique, and we do deserve love, and we are enough, and we are worthy. So just for anybody listening, know that is waiting for you on the other side. If you're currently in a difficult situation, that you can change this. Your past does not equal your future, does it, Brooke?
It does not. I agree. You always matter.
So thank you for sharing your personal information, Brooke. It's been very insightful and certainly a very, very emotive conversation, but very worthwhile conversation to enlighten our listeners around what is possible for them in terms of future change and possibility. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. It was lovely chatting with you.
So it just leaves me to say that true love starts with opening our hearts. And until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.